Here he is. It's Mr. James Phelps, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
How's it going?
It's going all right. I am clearly, everybody, not Kyle Bono. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us. We'll have him on at another time. So you are stuck with me for today.
That's no bad thing. That's no bad thing. So, guys, James Phelps is one of the unsung heroes who works behind the scenes. And the thing is, James, back in COVID, we had this thing called Clap for Carers in the UK. So tonight it's clap for clap for marketing directors during Black Friday because it's been
That will never be a thing. That will never ever be a thing. I just want to point out to everybody too that the irony that I am joining from the Czech Europe account as an American, and Andy is hosting this from the Czech Institute account as somebody from the UK, as a Brit. So that'll tell you something about how mixed up this is going to be today.
Well, you know, the UK is out of Europe, so I can't use the European account.
That's true, and I certainly wouldn't want to offend any other Brits or Europeans, I suppose, on the session with us by mushing the two of you guys together.
Indeed. So, guys, thanks for joining us. Tell you what's happening here. We were going to have one guest on. He couldn't make it, so we've got James Phelps, who is the marketing director of the CHEK Institute. And James has been with the Institute for a long time, and it's going to be an amazing insight when we get into it. This should be a really good interview because James, apparently in some recent assessments that we did, James is an INTJ, and I am a ENTJ. So we're quite aligned, which is interesting. There's Emmanuel. Emmanuel, we spoke, I believe, the other day during our Black Friday event. Nice to have you on. So James and I work together, guys, and I know how hard this guy works and how hard he has worked for the Black Friday event, which I have to say, James, was a massive success. Would you agree with that?
I would, and thanks to everybody that supported us, everybody who picked something up during the event. You know, I think you're going to love what you got. It's going to support you and your goals, and you'll be able to do great things with it. So thanks for participating.
Yeah, likewise, guys. It's been, I mean, I think we're all dead. I think James and I are the only ones left standing after that 4-day period. But it was, for me, James, it was great to connect with everyone and converse, talk about careers, the excitement, and just the pleasant nature that you get from checkers and practitioners that, you know, are part of the community.
Yeah. It's been, for those of you who, I mean, most students have heard of me one way or another, just because I really have been with the Institute since 2005. So what is that, going on 17 years now? So we've been doing this for quite a while, but this was a fun year, and it's always great to meet students.
It certainly is. We've still got people joining us. Guys, thanks for joining. It's a slight change to the planned schedule. We're going to have Kyle on, but can't make it. So we've got James Phelps, Marketing Director, who I work with in CHEK Institute on a daily basis, I dare say. And James has been with the Institute now for many, many years. We're going to get his story. And this, like I say, we're going to keep this humorous, James, because I think you and I have got a good chemistry.
Yeah.
I tell the jokes and you just kind of like laugh falsely and go.
Yes, that's part of being a marketer, right? Is you just laugh along.
First question. Let's get the serious shit out of the way. First question: how does everyone work so hard in the CHEK Institute? And that's a genuine question. So for me coming in, I came into the business, I don't know, July, August time, and one thing that got me was how driven you all are. You know, I mean, this is like the execution of the Black Friday was impressive. Like from a, you know, hats off to you from a marketing perspective, guys. This is the guy here who pretty much put the strategy of Black Friday together and has knocked it out of the park. We've beaten last year's figures. What is the energy, James? Why does everyone work so hard?
Well, I think it's why anybody works hard at any career, right? When they really do work hard, and it's just because almost everybody, I would say everybody at the institute just loves the mission. We're all on board with this mission. We're all on board with, what the whole company is about. I obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but I think, like I said, I've been here for 17 years. And a good part of the reason why I've been here is because I love what Paul does. I think for me, more than anything else, more than money, more than anything else, what drives me to work hard and to put my all into every project that we do is the fact that I love what we do. That I think what we do is really meaningful, and when you have that sense of meaning, it's much easier. You don't feel a friction to putting in effort. I mean, I think that's part of a lot of people. If you're in a career that you hate, life feels like you're wading through cement, right? That's every day. Every day is really hard because there's great resistance to what you do, and I don't feel that sense at all about being at the institute. So I really do. I think it's alignment with the mission. It's alignment with who we are and what we do, and that makes me excited. It makes me excited to see students come to our classes and they're thrilled, and it makes me excited to see students leave. And the difference between when they come to a class and leave is stark, right? Because they come in all excited, they leave all excited, but they're like punch drunk, right? Because they've got all this information and their heads are exploding. But it's this great sort of exhaustion that they leave with, and I love seeing that. I love interacting with the students and talking to them about their dreams and what they're doing with what they've learned and what their goals are. And so there's so much about being a part of this company, and this isn't marketing. I don't think anybody could just be at a job that you hate just for the money for 17 years. I couldn't do it. And so the key to my working at the Institute and being able to give it the effort that I do is just because I love it here.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a pretty special product offering. There really is nothing quite like it at all in the marketplace for coaches and PTs. And there's a sense of pride and a sense of making a difference because of the level of information that's being shared and the standard information. That's going to make a difference to an industry globally as well. It's not just one country. It's a massive shift, a massive community. So let's start at the beginning then, because you have quite an interesting story in terms of how you entered the Institute in the first instance. Should we start from there? Do you want to talk us through what you were doing before entering the CHEK Institute and how you got in?
Yeah, so I was a college professor before I started at the Institute. I taught philosophy. I was finishing a PhD, and I started to get really disaffected with the academic world. I have this strong feeling that most universities are degree factories, that we're out there to kind of just take people's money, take students' money, shove them out the door at the end of 4 or 6 or however many years, at least in the US, for whatever money they could get out of them, leave them with a piece of paper or a certificate, and that was about it. And in the United States, most students have to take out significant student loans in order to get through their education. So they leave with a piece of paper and $100,000 in debt, and that affects them for the rest of their lives. And no matter how much I love teaching and working with my students, knowing that this is where they're coming out at the end, just it was significantly out of alignment with who I was, what my values were, and so I couldn't be in it anymore. And so I left Connecticut where I was teaching, and I'd gone to California, and I was looking for a job. And so the institute was looking to hire for Paul's assistant at the time. And so I forget what the job description was written, but basically it was sort of a research assistant position, that kind of thing, and it was really exciting to me because they'd written about philosophy, and because Paul was into it and all of that, and said, oh, okay, let me see what this is about. And so I went. I think I had a phone interview with Penny, and she moved me on to the next round, and then I went and had an interview with Paul, and my interview with Paul, I think, lasted 3 hours, and we did not talk about the job at all. I had no idea what the job was going to entail after we finished, but we talked for 3 hours about quantum physics and philosophy and biology and like everything under the sun except for the job position, and we had a blast. It was the craziest job interview. Well, I mean, I haven't had another job interview, in decades, but it was the craziest job interview I've ever been to. And the most fun job interview I've ever been to, and it was great. And I didn't get hired to be his assistant; he hired somebody else. I was hired to be Penny's assistant actually when I got first hired on. And Penny will laugh and tell you, well, I lasted about a month as Penny's assistant before Paul grabbed me and started using me as his research assistant, as his editor, and then it just grew on from there. And over the years, I've occupied different positions in the company, but so that was how I get started.
In 2005, which is when you started, that was 17 years ago. Paul was very active. He was doing the expos all around the world, traveling quite a lot, and that was when CHEK Institute was really at the forefront and very much in everyone's face. So you'd open a trade publication magazine and you'd see or hear about CHEK Institute.
Yeah.
Then things went a little bit quiet.
Yeah.
What happened there? Well,
so part of the journey at the Institute has been to see Paul's evolution. Not everybody gets to see that. I've been lucky to work closely with Paul. And so when I was joining the Institute, Paul was sort of transitioning out of a very let's say a very Dr. Movement kind of phase of his life. At the time, we were working out of a place, different gym. Some of you may remember the location that we were at. It was kind of a 2-story with a massive gym in the middle, and then my office kind of overlooked that. And when I first started working there, Paul would work out sort of early afternoon, and I would hear these like crazy sounds coming from the gym, like, what? Who is he killing down there? And then Paul would run up and he would say, I just crushed my PR in the deadlift, and he would say some massive number, and I was just starting, and I was a runner, not a lifter, and so I had no idea what any of those numbers mean, but it sounded good, so I'd be congratulatory, right? And that was sort of in 2005, he was coming out of this phase where he was really immersed in kinesiology, biomechanics, holistic. That was back when CHEK stood for corrective holistic exercise kinesiology, and so we were really, really focused in that way. But Paul was coming out of that, and this is when he'd really started to read a lot more philosophy, metaphysics, and to start to build the connections between the spirit and body, body and spirit, body, mind, and spirit, and to really dive deeper into the sort of holistic side of things, but even more so than nutrition, into spirituality. And so as he explored that, and so, as Paul goes, so goes the Institute. And so we started moving a little bit more into that direction too. And this is oftentimes what happens when you're at the forefront of any industry, is you kind of leave people behind if they're not, they're maybe not understanding what the cutting edge is and where the cutting edge is. And so I think we left our audience behind a little bit in that focus. And so what we've realized over the years is that we need to do a better job of bridging kind of where Paul is to where the industry is. And so that's kind of where we've circled back to now, is reestablishing that connection with the fitness industry, reestablishing our connection with therapists, athletic trainers, strength coaches, and those folks, but then doing a better job of bridging where we are now to where Paul is going, because we feel strongly that Paul is still kind of defining where the edge is, where the leading edge is when it comes to health and well-being. It's just he's like sprinted way ahead of us right now. And so what I will say is, for those of you who don't know, Paul is writing a new book. I'm not gonna tell the title because he might take a swing at me next time I'm up at Rainbow House, and that would hurt. But I think what this book is also supposed to do is, bridge that gap a little bit more and connect what he's been doing on the spiritual side of things a little bit more clearly to the physical body and the sort of exercise sides of things, the nutrition side of things, the emotional well-being side of things, and to sort of bring that all into one coherent system. So look for that for next year. But that's sort of my take on kind of where the Institute went, I would say, in the last 8 years or so.
The other thing that happened is there was the change in kind of tech. So it went from VHS into DVD, and then everything around sort of 2005, iTunes was making a big entry into the market, and a lot of things were going online as digital downloadable content. So you had this situation where the CHEK material had just moved to DVD, and then all of a sudden it was kind of caught with that. So there's another reinvestment needed there to go digital.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And that's the kind of cool thing about the Institute is there are generational students, right? There are students who remember the VHS days. There are students who remember Paul with hair, who actually saw him with hair, right? And to see those transitions and those transitions, the VHS to DVD wasn't a huge leap. But the DVD to e-learning has been a tremendous change. It's a change in the way that people interact with our content. It's changed the way that it's changed how people learn in a way that I don't think that DVD or the jump from VHS to DVD didn't change the way that people learn in the way that e-learning did. And so I think everybody who's made that jump to e-learning is still trying to figure out what is the best way to present our information in an e-learning environment so that people really get what we're doing. And especially for us, right? We know how to talk about, for example, HOC kinds of things, right? Because you don't need to do, for example, palpation, right? You don't need to have live body there to do assessments. But when we start doing the doctor movement stuff, we just rolled out IMS 1 online. And so there was a lot of thought on our part about, well, how are students going to learn how to do these assessments strictly by watching on an e-learning platform, right? If they can't be if they don't have a client right in front of them, if they don't have their instructor and a client, a dummy client or whatever, together at the same time, where an instructor is, maneuvering a client around and showing them landmarks on the body to look for and showing them where to palpate on a body. How do we do that in an e-learning environment? And so it's been, that's been a huge challenge for us. And honestly, it's one that we're still working on, but it is one with every single course that we roll out that's on that movement side of things. We spend days talking about how are we gonna teach this assessment. And we know that, you know, everybody who's taken our classes knows that, that's our thing, right? If you're not assessing, you're guessing. So how do we show people really how to read the body in that way in an e-learning environment? So you're absolutely right, Andy, that the shift for all of learning, global learning, to be in an e-learning world has been a super challenge for us, and one that we're still trying to figure out. But I think, you know, we've got amazing faculty. Like Matt Walden is such a freaking superstar brainiac, that to, you know, have those conversations with him and to, see Matt does his, tilts his head and looks off into whatever space he looks off into, right? When that big brain of his is going, you've all seen it, right? It's a fun thing to see, and to see, have him turn out and talk it through, is great. And so we've got a really good team that is always working hard at these kinds of challenges. And so e-learning has changed everything, and it's something that we're still working at getting better at.
What was the students' response to the announcement of IMS 1 online? How did they feel about it? It's been polarized.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of students are excited because it opens up IMS 1 to a whole part of the world that didn't have access to it before, right? So I don't know if you all who are listening know, but we have quite a following in India, but we've never conducted an IMS 1 in India. We don't have the resources to do that. They could take HLC 1 perfectly fine anywhere in the world, right? Because we have it online. Now they can do that with HLC 2, but we've never been able to offer IMS 1 there. And so now this allows us to bring IMS to places that have been asking for it for years, that we just couldn't get, a body out there to teach it. So there's a lot of people that are really thrilled, really thrilled with this. We've got a lot of people who are interested in what we do in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, UAE, places like that have really been interested in asking for us. And so those parts of the world are really thrilled. I think the controversy goes back to what I said, that people really understand the value in what we are saying, right? If you're not assessing, you're guessing, and really want to understand and want to feel confident in their assessment skills, right? That they might be a little worried that they're not going to get that from an e-learning course. You will. You will get it from IMS 1, because we've taken a lot of care to film from a variety of angles, to talk through cues. So you'll get it. But I understand some of the reluctance. And, the nice thing is, for those people who live in parts of the world where you have an option to take it either live or whatever, then you have your choice to pick the kind of learning style that's best for you. So if you really like having that hands-on opportunity, you've got it. You've got it with a live class, and so you've got those options. The upside of IMS 1 online is you've got it eternally, right? So if you didn't quite understand how to do an assessment or what the cues were for an exercise, you rewind, you watch it again, you go back, and you can do that anytime you want. So there's advantages to both. What I would say is that if you live in a place where you can take either, and you're trying to consider which is best for you, ask yourself about your learning style, and think carefully about your learning style, and then make the choice that will work for you. If you're a kinesthetic learner, then my suggestion is the live course is going to work for you. But if you're a visual learner, then the online version is going to be great.
Awesome. We're going to talk about the future and direction of the CHEK Institute, and if there's anything you can share with us that's not confidential or unconfirmed, then that'd be great. You'd hear it here first, guys. But for those of you joining, thank you for joining. You're on with myself, Andy McGlynn, and James Phelps, the marketing director, one of the unsung heroes that works hard behind the scenes to make the CHEK Institute what it is, to make the Black Friday event what it was. We've had a fantastic time, I think it was literally every single soldier was handed a rifle and sent to the front line within the CHEK Institute management team
Yeah.
to go and make the phone calls, and it was a joy to do it. You know, we were all pleasantly fatigued, should we say, after connecting with so many of you. So it was a real joy, and I have to say, for me, it was a real privilege to be able to connect with people who were so bought in to a theory and a philosophy. Right? Isn't that so just remarkable?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
buy-in and the depth of the content. So that's who you're on with, guys. So stay with us, because we're not going to be on for that much longer, because James is a busy guy. He's got a lot to do, but he stepped in for us. So James, future then. So we've talked about your 17-year involvement starting in 2005, the transition from VHS to DVD to the hybrid of being face-to-face online, face-to-face and online classes and courses. As we go into now 2023 and beyond, what's the goal? What's the mission for the CHEK Institute?
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about this. It is definitely a goal for 2023 to continue to reconnect with the fitness community. So some of you out there may have heard whispers about something called PT 3.0. This is a big CHEK Institute project that we're going to launch in 2023. I won't reveal too much about it. Hey, Abdul, we're one of the other CHEK staff members has sort of popped by. Good to see you. So
congrats.
Yeah. So PT 3.0 will be big. It's not like anything that we've ever done before. It's going to be a live web show. That's all I'm going to say. It's not going to be a webinar series. It's not going to be, just a, video series that we post. It's going to be a live web show. And I'm super excited for it. And it's going to be an experiment, but I think it's going to be a really fun one. And when we pull it off, I think it's going to be a really, really valuable and free resource. So I'm really excited about that. We have a number of new courses, just like we do every year.
Raise my hand.
Oh, yeah, go. Okay.
Not letting you off the hook with that.
Oh,
You've got to give us more. Okay. You've got to give us more about PT 3.0.
What else do you want to know? I mean, so the idea, really, what we want to do, what we feel like, the idea behind calling it 3.0, right? And I'm sure that those of you who hear something like 3.0 or 2.0, right, that is supposed to imply next generation, right? So what we want to do is offer next generation training for, people who are mostly coming from the personal trainer world, right? And so we love the personal training industry. We think that it's extremely valuable what personal trainers do. Paul will be the first person to tell you that in some way, I think he's called trainers the gatekeepers of humanity, which sounds a little grandiose, but the idea is that personal trainers, more than any health or fitness professional out there, interact with their clients with a frequency that no other health or fitness person does that, right? Oftentimes you'll see your client once a week. You might see them twice a week, right? That gives trainers this incredible insight into the health and well-being of their clients, one that their MDs don't get, one that their therapists don't get, maybe their chiropractors don't get, like nobody else gets that. And so what that means is trainers, have this incredible opportunity to impact the health and wellness of their clients. But if you look at the industry statistics, most trainers, as you know, Andy, drop out barely a year into the industry. And that's a shame. Because there is such a potential for trainers to really help people. And so we think that a lot of the reason this happens is because the industry hasn't really done right by its students in educating them and providing them with, we love the industry, but the training has to live up to the potential. And so we want to provide PT education that lives up to the potential. And so PT 3.0 is going to be free training that does exactly that, that lives up to the potential of trainers and gives them the opportunity to tap into it. And again, absolutely free. And so that's the plan.
That's great. That's great. That gives us a good insight. And one thing I want to add onto that, one thing I think that lets the fitness industry down, from my perspective, is that the fitness industry or the PT or the coaching industry, whatever you want to call it, asks another industry, the medical industry, for permission to train people.
Yeah.
And that has to stop, or it has to evolve. We reach out to another industry that's got a stranglehold from a very, very palliative medical perspective, and we say, is it okay if we train these people? And you know, the reality is that that's very antiquated thinking. If you really think about that for a second, why the hell are we asking the medical industry for permission to get someone well from a holistic perspective, something that's going to actually aid that person's improvement or recovery or remedial process? And I think that's really where the industry has to change. And I'd love to see that in PT 3.0. I'd love to see that paradigm shift in there, where we're no longer going outside of ourselves to ask for that permission to do something that should have been there in the first place.
Yeah, and so we're doing some of that already in a way, because we want to build relationships, right? Because what we think is that the CHEK Institute has something to offer to MDs. It has something to offer to the medical world. I mean, Paul will tell you countless stories about how he really rehabilitated people that MDs said could never be done, right? And in that way began to educate them about this holistic system. And so I'll give you an example of just one case where this is happening, right? We just released a course called Natural Fertility, an integrated approach to reproductive health. And the course was produced for us actually by Nathan Riley, who was Angie CHEK's OBGYN. He's an MD, but he is an amazing holistic thinker. He's actually taken CHEK courses. He knows CHEK philosophy. He's embraced it. He's sort of built it in to his practice and produced this wonderful course. And so our way of thinking about this is to do kind of work with MDs in the ways that we've worked with Nathan Riley, right? Which is to build relationships, to show that this perspective and the tools that we have are incredibly complementary and can be incorporated into what they do and enhance what they do, and make their practice better, enable them to help their clients in ways that they could never have envisioned. And so that's certainly going to be part of our strategy going forward too. We love to reach out to the trainers, but we also love to reach out to all different parts of the health and wellness industry, and that includes MDs, because we think we have something to offer to them too. And I think Nathan would agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a fascinating course, the fertility course. That's a big step in the right direction. Yeah. So coming back to the courses then, what is the plan for IMS 2 and beyond? Are you looking to move those online?
That's the plan. I won't put any timelines on those. As I just said, IMS 1, for those of you who have looked at IMS 1 or are taking it, right, it's over 100 videos. I don't remember the number of learning hours involved in it. It's maybe like 37 to 40 learning hours. If you extrapolate to how much raw footage and how many hours of just pure film footage that is, it's 100 or more hours of film footage that needs to be edited and so forth. And so what we need to do is learn from what we did with IMS 1 and see what the lessons that we can extract from that are. How do we make IMS 2 online that much better? Learn from what we've already learned from doing IMS 1, but it's going to be a massive. So that's just a long-winded way of saying there will be an IMS 2 online, but we don't have a timeline for that yet. But it's definitely in the planning stage for sure.
Okay. Let's turn our attention to Paul for a moment, because you spoke about Paul at the very start. He was the one that conducted your 3-hour long interview. So you'd have got to know the guy pretty well. And you do spend a good portion of time with him for the filming and the pieces to camera that you need him to do for your marketing strategies.
Yeah.
Tell us something we don't know about Paul.
Oh gosh. Something that you don't know about Paul. What can I say without getting myself in trouble? In some ways, I will say that if you listen to him on the podcast, if you watch him in his videos, I think maybe that you don't know this. I think most people think that there's a sort of a marketing persona there, that there's a persona that he puts on film, or that there's a persona that he puts on his podcast. And I will tell you that is just 100% him, that there is nothing inauthentic about Paul at all. So if you see him, like if he breaks into song in the middle of a podcast, which he does every once in a while, he does that in real life too. I'll be talking to him about something, and something he says or I say strikes him, and all of a sudden he's singing it, or he's dancing to it, or right. I mean, so he is 100% authentic, and for a really public figure, I think maybe that's not something that people would expect, but it's certainly true of Paul, and 100%. It's part of what I so appreciate about him. I mean, sometimes I will say, as an aside, it's massively frustrating, but it's also a great joy to work with somebody that you always know where you stand with him. You never ever need to worry about knowing what he's thinking, where he's at, what he needs or wants. It's great. So that may not be the insider story that you guys were looking for, but that's it. I will say that if you want to hear some stories that I think maybe you've not heard him talk about before, there is on our homepage, there's about a 30-minute mini documentary about Paul and how he created the Institute. And there are some stories that he tells on there when we were filming that I'd never heard before, that I've never really heard him talk about since, but that are very deeply personal stories that will give you insights into who he is, especially from when he was a child. And I think that I think that's well worth watching. The other thing that I think a lot of people, I want to let people know about Paul is Paul has this incredible respect for who his clients are, and for years and years, he's just recently talked a little bit about working with Kobe Bryant. I mean, just recently, and little tiny bits, but he worked with, in the world of athletics, massive clients, like huge clients that, most trainers, if they like worked with any of these level clients for an hour, would have plastered it all over social media, would have had the word, like had video testimonials everywhere. And Paul never wanted to do that. He wanted to respect his clients, respect their privacy, and treat them like human beings, even though they were these big celebrities. And I think that's part of the reason why those people would keep going back to him. And so, he's got some stories that he can tell about those clients. The story about meeting Kobe Bryant, I think he's on there, he's told that somewhere, is a really funny story. And if you meet Paul, you should ask him that story, because it will crack you up. I think some of it is Paul's innocence about who these people are, because Paul doesn't follow any sports. So when these huge athletes call him up and they're like, "Hi, this is so-and-so," he's like, "I don't know who you are. Who are you?" And they're always like, their jaws drop to the floor, because how could this person not know who they are? But I think that's also part of the respectability, in a way, that they get treated like 100% human beings.
You have prompted the question there, talking about international athletes. Between the years of 2004 through to, well, the ongoing decade, there was always a lot of animosity between Charles Poliquin and Paul. Can we talk
I
about
mean, so I never met Charles. I don't know Charles at all. So all I will say is
Charles and I were pretty good friends.
okay.
I brought him over to the UK, and we did 2 massive events, like, sort of 306 PTs attended this 2-day event with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I took him out for some food. We went to Gaucho for a steak, because that's all Charles ate, just, steak. And tried to get out of him, I tried to understand what the beef was. And he'd never talk about it.
So what I will tell you about Paul is not a guy who holds grudges. But you would never, I would never, Paul, like I said, Paul never was afraid to show his emotions. So if somebody pissed him off, you knew it, right? And especially those early years, I was in and out of Paul's office, because Paul's office was actually on site. If you remember the old place, it was on site. And so I would see Paul basically every day and talk to him almost every day. And I don't ever, and Poliquin followers may like gasp about this, but I don't ever remember him even really talking about Poliquin. I don't think that if there was one, what I would probably tell you is that it was mostly one-sided, that I rarely heard Paul talk about him, and that he just, I don't think it was ever a thing for Paul. Paul was always somebody that did his own thing, right? I think that's why he's been at the edge of what's going on, is because he does his own thing. And so Poliquin doesn't like something he's doing, but it works for Paul. Paul's going to keep pressing it. He's going to keep exploring it, and whatever, and that's not just for Poliquin. It was for anybody and everybody. That if it was working, if Paul saw real value in it, he was going to press on it, dig into it, try it. And I'm not trying to drop the F-bomb on here, but forget everybody else, right? And that's why Paul does make progress. That's why he does develop these systems. And so like I said, I'm not trying to speak for Paul. This is just my perspective. I never heard him ever really utter a bad word about Charles. I never heard him get mad about him. I never really heard him say much of anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's even references that he's used, from Charles's work within some of his text, So yeah, never understood that one. Always an unusual energy between them both, particularly at, like, say, FitPro, FitPro in the UK.
Well, I will also say that, both guys have big egos. So, you put two kind of alpha male guys with big egos together, and, something's bound to happen. This is why, I would love for Paul to appear on Joe Rogan's podcast, but I also have some trepidation about that, because it's the same sort of thing. Like, those two are two guys with some egos, and it could go amazingly well, or it could be just like a frightening conversation. There we are. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Don't know what happened there.
All right. I mentioned Joe Rogan's name, and that blew up Instagram. So there you go. Speak the devil. Speak his name, and then he'll appear, right?
Yeah. So where were we? What were we talking about?
I think the last question you asked was about sort of where the source of whatever friction there was between Charles and Poliquin and Paul. And like I said, I never really thought that there was anything there on Paul's side. But it's not surprising that when you get two guys that, both of them have an ego. And I don't think anybody who knows Paul will be surprised or shocked to hear me say that. You put two guys like that together, and there's bound to be some friction. And what I know about Paul is he might be pissed off in the moment, but it goes away, and that's the end of it.
James, we are going to finish this podcast if it can.
I think that's the universe's way of saying get off the damn social media.
Never. All right, so let's get to the final question. And guys, you do have the option of asking James any questions that you want to ask him. The last question that I have for you, buddy, is the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see the Institute going?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, we definitely want to find a way to really expand our offerings to the rest of the world. So, I mentioned that in India, I mentioned Saudi Arabia, UAE. We really want to find ways to bring as much of our education as possible to the rest of the world. So that's one of the sort of avenues that we're working on. But the other thing, I know probably many of the students who are listening to this have heard this, we're working on building out CHEK clinics in various parts of the world. So actually supporting physical locations that we know are owned and run by CHEK professionals that support CHEK professionals that, kind of have our backing, and building out that as well. As hubs for offering, CHEK practice, but also as hubs for live CHEK education as well. So the next 5 to 10 years really is about expanding our educational offerings, but then building and expanding these CHEK clinics. And I'm really excited about that vision. I think there's a lot of help that needs, a lot of people that need help around the world. And I think the CHEK clinics can be a great answer
to that is exciting. That is very exciting. Just one last question, actually. We're coming to the end of the year, and James, I want to do a special Christmas live. If we can try and make that happen, we'll probably get a number of guests on. So, Dale, I know you're watching, buddy. Got your message. We'll get you on that one, fella. So 20th of December. And what I thought we could do, James, is get a number of people coming through if we can make that happen.
That'd be great.
That'd be fun. And we'll talk about, the year in review and what's gone down and stuff. But for you right now, and I am putting you on the spot with this question a little bit, but I'm going to ask it anyway, but what are your learnings from 2023? 2022.
Yeah, let's not jump too far. I haven't learned it. I mean, I don't have Paul's psychic abilities, so I haven't learned anything.
Not yet, anyway.
From the upcoming year, but I think 2022 was a rough year for a lot of people in a lot of ways, and I think one of the big things that I learned from 2022 is not to retreat, not to fall into a poverty mindset when the universe seems to be taking a swing at you. Like, don't don't back down, don't retreat, because if you do, once you get onto your heels like that, once you find yourself in that poverty mindset, it's very difficult to grow again. If you are seeing clients, this is one of the things that I learned as a teacher, but it's also one of the things that I think any trainer or health practitioner knows, that deep down, if you're not confident in yourself and in your offering, that your client or your student may not know that on a conscious level, but they will sense that at a subconscious level. And how that manifests, maybe they leave or, whatever. But so and I know this is sort of we've all heard the kind of economic doom and gloom about 2023. But, what I would say, two things. We've already talked about the free offerings that the CHEK Institute is going to do. And what I will say is the Institute's mission is to give more than we've ever given. And I don't mean by giving just more courses, but I mean free resources to support you, to make sure that you are confident in your abilities and what you offer. And I think if you can do that, I think if you can sort of maintain your level of confidence and, be somebody that your clients know can guide them through these times, you will be invaluable and they will stick to you, stick with you. And so my big thing, you know, it's maybe a very Paul Check thing to say is just like what I learned in 2022 is don't back down. You know, keep at your goals. Don't ever lose sight of them, and keep, even if it's baby steps. Don't stop. And if you can do that, if you can make even a baby step, even every day, even in the most challenging of times, you're going to come out on top.
Indeed, wise words and good reflections there. So I'm going to leave you to have a think about what we can finish on. I'll let you lead us out, and just while you're having to think about that, guys, every Tuesday, 9 p.m. GMT, that's UK time, which I think is 1 p.m. Pacific time, we run these career lives on Instagram. You have the opportunity to attend and watch. You have the opportunity to attend and watch and ask questions or throw comments. We're happy to take anything. Or you can apply to come and join us, and we can get to know all about your story and your journey, as we've done here with James tonight. James Phelps, Marketing Director, been with the CHEK Institute for 17 years, and long may it continue. I think they'd be lost without you, mate, to be honest with you.
They'd be fine.
We have just declared we're going to do a Christmas special on the 20th, where we'll get a number of guests going on. We'll have a bit of fun. We'll pull a few crackers, and we'll make it very festive-like. And James has spoken a lot tonight, if you've missed it, about the future of the CHEK Institute, where it's going, what it's doing. If you've missed it, then maybe tune back in next Tuesday. Every Tuesday, guys, without fail, which we've been doing now since August. I'm very proud of the fact that we've not missed a single Tuesday, even in light of some of the tech challenges that we've had, and in light of some of the last-minute changes to guests. We've made it on the nose every Tuesday at this time, 9 p.m. GMT. So come and join us and get involved, because this is part of the community, guys. This is part of what makes the CHEK Institute, or you know, what it's about. And we're not censoring anybody on here. You can come on and speak your mind, because I think we trust that the community has a high vibration to it.
For sure.
James, over to you to lead us out with any final thoughts.
I feel a little bit as though, because I'm the director of marketing, I should have something to say about marketing when we go out. And so I'll just leave you with something from Sun Tzu, a saying from Sun Tzu, which sort of shapes the way that I think about marketing. I think it should shape, and it doesn't matter what scale of business you're at, whether you are, you know, a solopreneur, you're like a one-person show, or you're a massive company. And the line from Sun Tzu is, tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And so, right, especially for people new to business, a lot of times the thinking is, I have to be everywhere and I have to do everything. And so they're on every channel, they're trying to do something, and it's just a lot of tactics without some guiding principle about what your goals are, how you want to achieve those, something that structures your whole way of pursuing your marketing. And it is, you end up just, here's another nerdy quote for you, right? This one's from the Lord of the Rings, or it's that place where Frodo says he feels like butter scraped over too much bread, right? If you're everywhere, if you're trying to do everything all the time, your butter is scraped over too much bread, and it doesn't, you know, you don't help, you don't end up helping yourself. So for anybody who's out there starting your business, for everybody who's wondering what to do with your marketing, my suggestion is to think about that quote from Sun Tzu. Take a step back. Think about the strategy, think about very carefully about your goals, and then pick one or two tactics that you think is going to work there and get good at them. Don't, you know, more isn't better, more is just more. So make some thoughtful choices about ones that you think are really going to support you. I know, maybe one social media channel, and really get good at it. And see what you can do and learn from it. Give yourself the space to learn and grow. So there's a little something for everybody.
Awesome. Love that phrase. Very powerful. Means a lot to everyone. That it's applicable to, I think, everyone in every walk of life. James, thank you very much for giving us a time, an hour of your day. Thank you for persevering. We had to do 3 attempts, but that's what we do. We just keep going until we achieve the outcome, right?
Right.
And guys, thank you for joining the live. Every single Tuesday without fail, we're here, 9 p.m. GMT, 1 p.m. Pacific time, with various guests. We're now booked up through to the new year, guys. So if you do want to jump on this live with us, drop me an email, andy@chekinstitute.com, or drop us a DM and we'll come back to you. And we'd love to hear your story and your journey. So guys, thank you very much. James, thank you. We'll be talking very soon, no doubt. Have a great rest of your day. All the best.
Thanks. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.